I've always been fascinated by the inexplicable, the macabre, and the spine-tingling, but nothing could have prepared me for the true, creepy family horror story that unfolded before my very eyes. It all began when I received a mysterious letter from my estranged uncle, Tobias. He had been a recluse for years, living in a decaying mansion in the remote woods of Vermont. The letter was a plea for help, a desperate cry for someone to unravel the sinister secrets that had plagued our family for generations. Uncle Tobias's letter arrived on a cold winter's night, its handwriting jagged and barely legible. It read, "Come to the old house. The darkness is closing in. You're our only hope." I knew it sounded like something out of a horror movie, but it was real. There was an urgency in those words that sent a chill down my spine. With nothing but the letter in hand, I made the long journey to Vermont, arriving at the outskirts of a small, desolate town. The townsfolk gave me wary glances as I asked for directions to the old family mansion, but no one seemed willing to speak of it. Their silence only fueled my curiosity, and I ventured deeper into the eerie woods. The mansion loomed ahead, a dilapidated structure with ivy-covered walls and shattered windows. The surrounding forest seemed to encroach upon it, as if nature itself was trying to reclaim the land. My heart raced as I entered the decrepit building, and the air inside was thick with a foul, moldy stench. I called out for Uncle Tobias, but there was no response. The silence was oppressive, and I could hear the faint sound of my own breathing echoing through the desolate hallways. As I climbed the creaking staircase, I noticed the walls were adorned with faded portraits of our ancestors, each one more unsettling than the last. Their eyes followed me, and their expressions were twisted in unnatural grimaces. I reached the top floor, where the door to Uncle Tobias's study stood ajar. Inside, I found a room filled with ancient tomes, dusty scrolls, and bizarre artifacts. It was a treasure trove of the occult, and I realized that my family's obsession with the supernatural ran deeper than I had ever imagined. Among the clutter, I discovered a journal. Its pages were filled with my uncle's frantic scribblings, detailing the horrifying events that had plagued our family. It seemed that every generation had been cursed, and the darkness that now enveloped the mansion was the culmination of centuries of malevolent forces. According to the journal, my ancestors had made a terrible pact with a sinister entity in exchange for wealth and power. The entity demanded a blood sacrifice in every generation, and it was up to the eldest child to carry out the gruesome deed. Failure to do so would result in the family being cursed for eternity. As I read on, I learned that Uncle Tobias had been the last surviving member of our bloodline. He had refused to carry out the ritual, hoping to break the curse, but the entity's malevolence had only grown stronger. It had tormented him relentlessly, driving him to the brink of madness. I was consumed by dread as I realized that I was now the last hope for our family's salvation. I had to confront the entity, to put an end to the cycle of bloodshed and darkness. But first, I had to find my uncle. I followed a trail of bloodstains through the mansion, each one leading me deeper into the bowels of the house. The walls seemed to pulse with an unnatural energy, and the air grew colder with every step. Finally, I entered a chamber unlike any other. In the center of the room, I found Uncle Tobias, bound to a grotesque altar made of bone and flesh. His eyes were hollow, his body emaciated, and he appeared to be in a catatonic state. I rushed to his side, but he could barely speak. With great effort, he whispered the entity's name, Morthos. As I attempted to free my uncle, a chilling presence filled the room. Shadows coalesced into a formless mass, and a voice that seemed to emanate from the very walls filled my ears. It was Morthos, the entity that had haunted our family for generations. Morthos revealed its true form, a writhing, amorphous mass of darkness and malevolence. It hungered for the blood it had been denied, and it intended to claim both my uncle and me as its victims. I knew that I had to act quickly. With a trembling hand, I retrieved an ancient dagger from Uncle Tobias's belongings. The blade glowed with an otherworldly light, and I knew it was the only weapon that could harm Morthos. With all the courage I could muster, I lunged at the entity, plunging the dagger into its amorphous form. Morthos let out a deafening scream, a cacophony of pain and rage that echoed through the mansion. The room convulsed, and I felt a searing pain as the entity's tendrils lashed out at me. But I held on, driving the dagger deeper into its form until it finally dissipated into nothingness. The curse was broken, and the mansion began to crumble around us. I managed to free Uncle Tobias, and together we fled the collapsing house. As we emerged into the cold night air, the mansion collapsed in on itself, burying the malevolent entity and its dark secrets forever. My family's horror story had come to an end, but the scars it left behind would linger for a lifetime. I knew that I could never forget the nightmarish ordeal I had faced, nor could I erase the knowledge of the darkness that had haunted my bloodline for generations. But as I looked back at the smoldering ruins of the old house, I felt a glimmer of hope. The curse was broken, and our family could finally rest in peace. I can still remember the day my family and I moved into Holloway House. It was an old Victorian mansion nestled at the edge of a dense, dark forest. The real estate agent assured us it was a charming family home, but little did we know the horrors that awaited us within those decaying walls. From the moment we stepped inside, an eerie chill hung in the air. The grand foyer was adorned with faded portraits of a family long gone. Their eyes seemed to follow us, casting an unsettling gaze upon our arrival. The agent quickly closed the heavy oak door behind us, leaving us alone in the oppressive silence. My husband, David, was determined to make this place our forever home. He believed in the power of a fresh start after the turbulent year we'd endured. Our two children, Emily and Ethan, were skeptical but hopeful. As for me, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong with Holloway House. The first night was uneventful, or so I thought. The children settled into their new rooms, and David and I unpacked in the master bedroom. Just as I was drifting into a restless sleep, I heard a faint whisper echoing through the halls. It was a woman's voice, mournful and filled with longing, calling out a name I couldn't discern. I shook David awake, but he dismissed it as a product of exhaustion. The whispers grew more persistent with each passing night, and soon, Emily and Ethan began complaining of unsettling dreams. They claimed to have seen shadowy figures lurking in their rooms, whispering to them in the darkness. David insisted it was their imagination, but I knew better. The house was hiding something sinister. One evening, as I was exploring the attic, I stumbled upon a box of old journals. They belonged to a previous owner, a woman named Eliza Holloway, who had lived here in the late 1800s. As I read through her entries, a chilling revelation unfolded. Eliza had been a widow, living alone with her two children, Sarah and Samuel. She wrote of strange occurrences in the house, whispers, footsteps in empty rooms, and her children's night terrors. The more I read, the more I became convinced that the house was cursed. Eliza's entries described a malevolent presence that tormented her family, driving her to the brink of madness. She believed it was the spirit of her deceased husband, Jonathan, who had died under mysterious circumstances. I shared my discovery with David, but he remained skeptical. He argued that the past had no bearing on our situation, and we shouldn't let a few old journal entries frighten us. Yet, he couldn't explain the increasing unease that hung over our home like a shroud. One night, as I lay in bed, I heard Emily and Ethan screaming from their rooms. I rushed to find them, and my heart stopped as I saw them both huddled in the hallway, their eyes wide with terror. They pointed at their rooms, claiming to have seen a tall, shadowy figure lurking in the corners. We decided it was time to seek help. We invited a paranormal investigator named Dr. Warren to Holloway House. As he conducted his investigations, he confirmed what I had suspected all along. The house was indeed haunted by a malevolent presence. Dr. Warren believed that the spirit of Jonathan Holloway was trapped within these walls, consumed by jealousy and rage. He had murdered his wife and children in a fit of madness before taking his own life. The house had absorbed the trauma of that night, and the spirits of the Holloway family were trapped, unable to find peace. As the days turned into weeks, the hauntings escalated. Objects moved on their own, and chilling apparitions appeared in mirrors. We could no longer deny the truth. We were living in a nightmare. David, now a believer, pleaded with Dr. Warren to help us rid the house of these tormented souls. The exorcism was a harrowing ordeal. The house seemed to fight back, shaking with fury as Dr. Warren chanted incantations and sprinkled holy water. The spirits, enraged by our intrusion, manifested in horrifying forms. We saw the ghostly figures of Sarah and Samuel, their eyes filled with sadness, and the vengeful spirit of Jonathan, his face contorted in madness. But in the end, the exorcism worked. The house grew still, and the oppressive atmosphere lifted. Dr. Warren assured us that the Holloway family had finally found peace and had moved on to the afterlife. Hollow House became our home once more, and the nightmares that had haunted us were nothing more than distant memories. Our family, now closer than ever, had survived the true horror that had lurked within those decaying walls. Yet, there are nights when I still hear faint whispers in the darkness, and I wonder if the spirits of the Holloway family truly found peace, or if they linger in the shadows, waiting for the next unsuspecting family to move into their cursed domain. The horrors of Hollow House will forever haunt my dreams, a chilling reminder that some family secrets are better left buried. My name is Emily Holloway, and I am writing this account as a warning to anyone who might consider purchasing the old Holloway house. It is a true, creepy family horror story that has haunted my family for generations, and I can no longer keep the terrifying secrets hidden within its walls. The Holloway house stood at the edge of a dense, foreboding forest. It had been in my family for as long as anyone could remember. Over the years, the house had earned a sinister reputation, one that was whispered about among the locals. People claimed the house was cursed, and those who dared to enter never returned the same. It all began with my great-grandfather, Samuel Holloway. He moved his family into the house in the late 1800s. The moment they set foot inside, strange things started happening. At night, they heard whispers that seemed to originate from the walls themselves. My great-grandmother, Eleanor, claimed to have seen ghostly figures wandering the hallways. The disturbances didn't stop there. Objects moved on their own, and doors slammed shut without any apparent cause. My great-grandfather was a rational man, but even he couldn't explain the inexplicable. He brought in priests, mediums, and paranormal investigators, but none could rid the house of its malevolent presence. The Holloway family suffered through years of torment, and my great-grandfather decided that the only solution was to isolate the house from the world. He hired builders to construct a tall wrought iron fence around the property, complete with spikes on top. The gate was padlocked, and no one from the family ever ventured out, and no one from the outside world dared to enter. For decades, the Holloway house remained sealed off from the world, its secrets hidden behind those imposing gates. It was only when my grandfather, William Holloway, inherited the property that the curse seemed to awaken once more. He was a curious man, always eager to uncover the truth, and he became obsessed with the house's dark history. Despite my grandmother's protests, my grandfather began conducting his own investigations. He discovered an old journal in the attic, written by my great-grandfather Samuel. In it, Samuel confessed that he had made a terrible mistake when he moved his family into the house. He had dabbled in forbidden rituals, hoping to unlock the secrets of the universe, but in doing so, he had unleashed an ancient evil. As my grandfather delved deeper into the journal, he learned that the only way to break the curse was to find a specific amulet that Samuel had hidden somewhere within the house. The amulet was said to contain the imprisoned soul of the evil entity. Armed with this newfound knowledge, my grandfather embarked on a perilous journey to find the amulet and save his family. For weeks, he searched every nook and cranny of the house. Each night, he could hear the whispers growing louder, the ghostly figures drawing closer. My grandmother grew increasingly fearful, pleading with him to stop. But my grandfather was determined to end the curse that had plagued our family for generations. Finally, one fateful night, he found it. The amulet was hidden beneath the floorboards of the attic, wrapped in a tattered piece of cloth. As he touched it, a bone-chilling scream echoed through the house, and the temperature dropped dramatically. He knew he had awakened the entity. With the amulet in hand, my grandfather performed the ritual described in Samuel's journal. It was a harrowing experience, with the walls of the house seeming to close in around him. The ritual required him to sacrifice a part of himself, and he did so willingly, believing it was the only way to save his family. The moment the ritual was completed, the house fell silent. The whispers ceased, and the ghostly figures vanished. The curse that had tormented the Holloway family for generations had been lifted, but at a terrible cost. My grandfather was never the same after that night. He had lost something of himself during the ritual, and he became a shell of the man he once was. He rarely spoke, and when he did, it was in a voice filled with dread. He spent the rest of his days locked in the attic, where he had found the amulet, whispering to himself and scribbling incoherent notes. As the years passed, the house remained in our family's possession, but we never dared to enter it. It stood as a haunting reminder of the horrors that had unfolded within its walls. My grandmother passed away, and my father inherited the property. He too chose to leave the house untouched, a grim testament to our family's dark past. Now it is my turn to inherit the Holloway House, and I have decided to share this chilling tale as a warning to anyone who might consider entering its cursed confines. The evil that lurks within those walls is not to be underestimated, and the price of trying to confront it is unimaginable. The Holloway House stands as a chilling testament to the horrors that can befall a family, and I can only hope that its secrets remain locked away forever, hidden behind the imposing gates that guard its accursed grounds.